So, you want a full auto, suppressed, short barrel rifle. Well, guess what? Perfectly legal. It's just gonna cost you a bunch of money, and it's a pain in the ass, but not for why you think. Welcome back to Bullets and Brass, folks. Today we are talking about NFA items, Class 3 items. This is full auto, suppressors, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, destructive devices. Most people are very confused. I talk to people all the time who don't understand how this works, and it's because there's a whole lot of bad info out there. There's a whole lot of confusing info. Just thought I'd clear it up. Class 3 stuff, there's no license. That isn't how this works. You pay a tax stamp for each item. It is essentially a fee that the US government, the ATF, charges you to process the paperwork for you to have your toy. If you really want to be cynical about it, you have to bribe the federal government to exercise your constitutional rights. And that is why we may see this get declared unconstitutional in the near future, because the Supreme Court has basically said it is. They just haven't gotten around to this particular piece of it yet. In 1934, the idea was that $200 was an exorbitant amount of money. Nobody was going to pay $200 to legally purchase this stuff. Everything was grandfathered in. If you already owned it, you were fine. But the idea, at least officially, at least publicly, was to put brakes on criminal activity. But it really was just gun control. Nobody in the government who was actually involved in this was looking at it as crime control. It was gun control. These days, the $200 tax stamp is, generally speaking, insignificant in the overall cost of what you're doing. Unless you're building your own suppressor or SBR or SBS, where you're just literally sawing off the end of the shotgun. The $200 stamp is minor compared to a $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,500 suppressor. And if you buy something like a honey badger or something, $200, you just add it to the price tag. It is what it is. It's a rounding error. Now here's the catch. Full auto it's not the tax stamp that's hard. It's finding what you want at a price you can afford. Suffice to say, if it's newer than 1986, basically Joe Blow can't have it. You have to be an SOT of some sort in order to have it, or a government agency. Now, there are plenty of people who fit into those categories, but the average person is not. This is where the Class 3 license shenanigans have started, because a Class 3 dealer is somebody who sells these products. They have a Class 3 SOT, Special Occupancy Tax. They are basically somebody who is in the business of selling this merchandise. Now, a Class 2 is somebody who's in the business of making it. Very often, those go together. Not always, but very often. Not something the average person is going to want to do. The costs and hassles involved are prohibitive, intentionally. The idea is that you're only going to pursue this if you are legitimately in business to make a profit. Full auto is a different animal for the average person, because the problem is not the $200 tax stamp. The problem is that because it has to be pre-86, the total number has actually decreased. Not drastically. Most of the stuff that's out there is still working. People fix it, people rebuild it. When your piece of shit Mac 11 breaks and is worth serious money because it's on the NFA list, you go get a sheet metal guy and a welder and everybody, and they fix it. The problem is availability. A basic AR-15 lower in full auto, an M16 lower essentially, is going to run you vastly more, and is going to be 86 or older. And I mean, we all know what old AR-15 lowers are like, right? They mostly suck. They are beat to shit. It is very rare to find one in good condition. Holes are wallowed out. Like it's rough. But keep in mind, there's nothing saying you can't have a welder fill those holes and re-drill as needed. The item itself is worth a lot of money. Repairing that item is reasonable. You also have things like machine guns, big machine, like Vickers machine guns, Maxim machine guns, MG42s, MG34s, M2 Brownings, M30 caliber Brownings, like the 30 caliber Brownings, the smaller one. I don't remember what it's called. 1916, is that what it is? Whatever. The 30 caliber version of the M2 Browning 50 cal. And honestly, I don't know which one came first even, and I should. If you want to have a doomsday bunker with a Maxim, belt-fed machine gun parked in a pillbox, this is not hard. It's going to cost you thousands of dollars. The ammunition bill is going to run equivalently, but you can do it. If you want an MG34, if you want an MG42, these are available. They are extremely expensive, but at times the value goes down, the market gets a little soft, and people snap up bargains where, an Uzi is only $5,000. Only, it's a piece of shit stamped submachine gun. It's dirt cheap. Yeah, they're $5,000 to $8,000 several years ago when I last paid any attention. That is the kind of thing you're looking at. That's the problem. The problem is not the tax stamp. Now, if you're not a law-abiding citizen and you're trying to purchase this stuff, yes, that's going to be an issue, because most of the people in possession of this kind of hardware that are legally in possession of it have no interest in dealing with you if you are not planning to legally transfer. They simply aren't going to release it to you without that tax stamp. Because, and let's go through this, here's how you do NFA stuff. And we're going to do this as if you're buying a suppressor from a store. Just you went to your local gun shop that sells suppressors. You picked out the one you want, you buy it. Literally, you pay for it right then and there. You don't get to take it home. No, sorry. Then you fill out your Form 4 and attach a $200 check. And there's ways to electronically pay them. You're paying the ATF. There's ways to do this digitally. And you wait. And you wait. The current wait time is between 250 days and 370 days. Yeah. At some point, your file gets to the top of the list for whatever reviewer is handling your file. They literally have a stack, or a digital collection. And whenever yours comes to the top, yours gets worked on. And at some point, yours gets to be the top of the pile. And they go through it, and everything is kosher. Your stamp gets approved. They cash your check and send you your tax stamp. Now, depending on how you did it, that tax stamp can be digital or it can be an actual physical stamp. No joke, like a tax stamp. Like, this is the 1700s, and we're freaking putting tax stamps on tea bags in Boston Harbor. It is the most ridiculous, archaic thing I've ever seen. But it is what it is. So you've paid your bribe. The powers that be have decided that you are not a criminal and you may exercise your constitutional rights. Now that your tax stamp has come back, you go back to the store and you go and you pick up your new toy and you have fun. That is it. It's not complicated. And honestly, I can't fault the actual reviewers in this. The people who work at the ATF who review NFA stuff seem to be pretty fair and honest and reasonable about this. They are not trying to deny you. They are literally looking at it as you have to have filled out these things properly. There can't be a paperwork error, and you have to meet certain requirements. If you are a legal gun owner, you probably meet the requirements. Unless your state somehow doesn't allow whatever you're trying to buy, you're fine. If you have a paperwork error, they are going to keep it at the top of the stack. They're going to inform you that you have a paperwork error. They can't read part of your serial number. Something is weird and they need you to correct it. You'll correct it. It will go back to them and they will immediately finish that paperwork. You don't have to wait another 250 days for them to get back to you. They're not the bad guys. It's the people who set the rules. It's the people who arbitrarily change rules, who decide that the e-forms system is now required, now not working, now required, now not working. And they make it very difficult for people to comply. For example, we have the whole shenanigans of Form 1, which is if you're making your own suppressor. You personally, as a non-SOT, are making your own suppressor. Well, they decided that every part that goes into that is a suppressor. That you have to have fills out a Form 1 for each one of those parts beforehand, right? Because they're all suppressors, right? So everybody in possession of a freeze plug for their engine, including everybody driving around, because everybody's car has them. Does everybody with a mag light need a Form 1 before they buy the mag light? I mean, lots of people have made suppressors out of mag light tubes. Like, I don't get it. And neither does anybody else. It is completely arbitrary and ridiculous, but that's their mentality. And the argument against it is simple. Is every block of metal in a machine shop or in a warehouse somewhere a suppressor? Because if it isn't, how are these things that we're purchasing that are absolutely, no question, intended to be used for a suppressor suppressors? Because if I have to modify it, meaning drill the appropriate holes and put it in a tube, it's not a suppressor. You show me how that part works as a suppressor. Prove it. Show me. I would love to see how a individual baffle, before it's drilled, is a suppressor. Waiting. Right? Just like how a shoelace is supposedly a full auto machine gun. Well, if you hand me a shoelace, I do not have a machine gun. But the ATF got away with a whole lot of crap before the Supreme Court decided they'd had enough. We're seeing the downside for them of this kind of shenanigans. Anyway, that is the process. The whole Class 3 license thing really started because we go to a Class 3 dealer to buy the stuff. If you want a suppressor, if you want an SBR, you're going to a Class 3 dealer because they're the people with the license to sell it. It's that simple. For the rest of us, it's a $200 bribe to the ATF.